Hello everybody, Jose Rodriguez here. Pro 1000 from Canon is so popular and so tempting to a lot of people. Sometimes if you find a good deal, you may be almost forced to order it. But I'm going to give you my pros and cons as to why you should buy it and why you should not buy it. Okay? Buy it if the price is just impossible to refuse. Originally, I believe it used to be $1,299.99. So if you find it for, say, 900 something, that might be a tempting offer. But again, otherwise, just don't buy it because you might not be ready for the responsibility this type of printer requires from you. Do you really need 17-inch capacity? If you can live with 13-inch by whatever, then you can probably choose some of the other smaller printers, such as the Canon Pro 200, Pro 300, the 8550, the 15,000 from Epson. They all have 13-inch capacity. So again, if all you need is 13-inch, then just don't even consider buying the Pro 1000. If you need 17-inch capacity, then sure, there are other printers out there that also offer that width, maximum width. So again, if you're a Canon fanboy, then go ahead and choose the Pro 1000. It offers you 17-inch by, I believe, 47-inch maximum at this point with the latest firmware. What kind of printer are you? Do you print often? And by often, I mean every day something. Then sure, if you still need something 17-inch by whatever and you're willing to print daily, then the Pro 1000 will be able to produce amazing results for you. And most, if not, at this point, the vast majority of the ink you will use will actually be used to create photographs. Isn't that the goal, right? What happens otherwise if you're not a frequent printer? Oh boy, then you get into a whole mess of trouble because the Pro 1000 expects those results to be as perfect as a printer can produce them. And to achieve that, guess what it has to do? Pre-print or preemptive cleaning cycles. And those use ink from all 12 channels. And often, if you're just going to print an 11 by 14, you will waste more ink preparing that printer, whether it really needs it or not. It's going to do it anyway because you haven't printed, say, in several days. It's going to make sure those nozzles are clear. And it will waste more ink. It will generate more waste ink than you will use for that 11 by 14. Isn't that something? So it would be like you buying something for $1, but the guy behind the counter says you got to give me another $1.50. You see what I mean? You will actually waste your cost of producing that single 11 by 14 will double and triple in some cases. So you're a frequent printer? Sure, get the Pro 1000. You'll be thrilled with the results. If you're not a frequent printer, do not get the Pro 1000. Okay? If you want a printer that can be calibrated, that means internally, so that it is actually producing what the factory intended it to produce as far as color output accuracy. If that is tempting and you don't mind doing a little bit of extra work to get it to that condition, get a Pro 1000. Other printers out there do not have that capability. Remember, printers are mass-produced, assembly line type products. They are randomly picked out of the assembly line and tested to make sure they fall within a margin of error. Yes, this wide. So anywhere between this plus and minus output quality or accuracy will pass. And you will probably buy one that's in the middle. You're lucky. You got the jewel, or way over here just made it, or way over here just made it. Well, the same thing happens with the Pro 1000. Sure, they're mass produced. The 2100, the 4100, the 6100, all of those bigger and bigger and bigger Canon IPF printers have that capability. So you internally calibrate it by loading some sheets of photo paper. Luster will work, and then it will print a set of control patches, which then it internally reads, and it can then determine errors in output. It is supposed to be this, but you outputted that. And so now I'm going to make a correction. It does all of that behind your back internally, and you just save that information, and then you save it to your driver as well. So if you would love that type of accuracy, in other words, being able to fine tune your printer, which other printers do not allow you to fine tune them, then of course get the Pro 1000, because that has that built-in feature for you. Now you may ask yourself, well, heck, I can just make profiles. Well, yes and no. Here's the catch. If you have two printers and one of them happens to be, say, just outside this border line where it's just barely passed, and then the other one is over here on the opposite side where it should both be in the middle, you make a profile with each printer, you cannot share those profiles. Those profiles have to then be used only for that printer. If you do not do that, if you just, say for instance, use a generic profile made by a paper manufacturer, you will get that profile. They made that profile in their printer. They probably calibrated their printer, and then you download it and load it. But none of your printers are calibrated. Okay, so let's say you're in a production type environment. You have a studio, and you got to make 100 prints, identical images, and you load 50 on printer A and 50 in printer B. They will not be identical. They'll be slightly different, because of their error in output. You never calibrated it. You never neutralized it to a central position. In other words, then when you make profiles with those two printers, they will be able to be utilized. Even if you use one printer to make the profile, you'll still be able to use it on the other printer, because they are both outputting identical. So if that interests you, then again, the Pro 1000 is the one for you. Do you like the idea of having 12 channels? Okay, the more colors you have in that palette, the more accurate your outputs or the reproduction of what you see on your screen. Even colors that are going to be a little bit difficult for other printers to reproduce on paper, will be a lot easier for a printer that has a multitude of colors. Now, think about this. You have yellow, magenta, cyan, and then grays and black. So how do I make green? So you mix dots from yellow and cyan together, and that creates a green. Okay? And depending on the proportion will determine what value of green, what hue of green you get. Now, red, well, yellow and magenta dots. Blue, cyan and some magenta will produce what's really blue. Cyan, people call it blue, but it's not really blue. True blue is more on the violet side of the spectrum, as a rainbow. When you see it on a rainbow, you will see what they call indigo. Really, that's really on the blue side. So anyway, how do you produce that accurately? Well, wouldn't it be better if I, instead of having to mix paints on my palette, before I try to paint a red flower on my canvas, I can mix some magenta and some yellow paint? Wouldn't it be better if I simply had red? Wouldn't it be better if I simply had a true blue? Wouldn't it be better if I had a green? Well, printers that have these other primary, I call them proprietary colors, which are basically meaning they are not composited to create them. They actually exist. So a printer like the Pro 1000 has two very important colors that are absolutely important. Without them, you cannot really reproduce a perfect red and a perfect blue violet. You just cannot. Okay? Other printers that do not have those proprietary colors sort of falls short when it comes to reproducing those particular colors. The 8550 is fabulous printer, but it doesn't have red ink. So it will have to composite red with yellow and magenta. XP15000 has a proprietary red ink. It does a better job. A more accurate red is reproduced. Same image with the same red. This will fall short a little bit, and that one will excel. So the Pro 1000 has red and true blue ink. Green apparently is not an issue with compositing, apparently. So that's why they just didn't introduce a green ink in that palette, in other words. So again, other printers will have 10, 8, 9, 12. You're dealing with 12. So if that appeals to you, Pro 1000. If you really do not care, like with the 8550, it only uses really 5 colors at any one time, then something like that will suffice you. You don't have to go to such an extreme type printer. The Pro 1000 uses about 50% of its initial load of ink. But then after that, you just basically replace your empties with new ones, and all of that new ink is going to be utilized. Nothing is going to go to waste if you print daily, okay? Because if you print daily, again, I repeat this over and over again, you will not be running these preemptive pre-print cycles of cleaning, of wasting ink, okay? So again, if you are a daily printer, yes, get the Pro 1000. If you're not a daily printer, don't get it. It's going to waste a lot of your ink, especially if you stick with OEM, you're going to go poor. Try to feed that printer. If you're a production person and you're generating money, revenue from your prints that you are selling, then, then it's not as bad, but I still recommend that you print daily just to extract every bit of value out of that print. Those inks need to be utilized for production of images, prints on paper, not to keep my printhead clean and free flowing. No, that's not what it's for. Although that's what it's used for. Okay, now, unlike other printers that may also have, say, 10 channels of ink, the Pro 1000, if you ever get into a situation where one particular color in your nozzle check is sort of dubious, maybe 80% clear, but 20%, you see that is something missing in that nozzle check, you don't need to run a complete 12-channel cleaning cycle. The printhead is subdivided into 3 zones. One zone will have 4 colors, another zone will have 4, and so forth. So you just basically pick that zone that contains the troubled channel. If it's yellow, you will pick the zone that contains yellow. That way the vacuum that is generated during the cleaning cycle that you will have to perform to clear that particular yellow channel will only be applied to 4 colors rather than 12. If you do it to 12, you'll be wasting a lot of precious ink. If you do it to 4, yeah, only a third of the precious inks will be wasted, but not really, because you'll be clearing that issue. But again, it's just a feature that I wish Epson would introduce. No, their printheads, you got to clean them all. You got to clean all the channels, even though it's only one channel being affected. Are you having problems with papers that sometimes tend to rise and curl a little bit? The Pro 1000 has assisted vacuum advance, which means that the paper is pulled down. Okay, some more advanced printers have full vacuum advance, but at least the Pro 1000 has the ability to give you that bit of help for certain papers that may be causing head strikes. Other printers maybe don't have that issue, but if you do ever experience a head strike, it's because the paper has risen up a little bit as it is being transported, and the printhead nozzle plate is literally touching the paper surface. You want to maintain that gap. It is an existing gap that must be maintained between the nozzle plate and the surface of the paper. So depending on the thickness of the paper, the printhead gap has to be exactly the same, and that is usually adjusted by when you choose a particular paper type, those parameters are already basically embedded in that paper type. If you choose ProLuster, it knows how thick ProLuster is. If you choose Premium Pro Matte, then it knows how thick that paper is, and it will set those parameters, that gap, as well as also the ink density required to produce a particular set of tones accurately at the correct value. Not too light, not too dark. In other words, not too dry, not too wet. Most printers, when they supposedly run out of ink, that means the chip says, hey dude, I'm empty, change me, actually have not run out of ink. They have ink inside their cartridges. These are notorious Epson P800, 3880, 3800. There's an internal bag in here. It holds 90 milliliters of ink, but when it is declared empty, 10 ml are still left in the bag. So you're going to end up, if you don't realize that, you're throwing away 10 ml of ink at about 80 cents each ml. Okay, figure that out. After a while, that's quite a lot of ink. Pro 1000, no. When the Pro 1000 chip says I'm empty, here's the chip. The cartridge is empty. Okay? So if you do not want to throw away ink when you exchange it, say you're never going to refill, you're using OEM exclusively, when every time one of those cartridges chip says I'm empty, you can be assured the cartridge is actually empty, bone dry, like this one is. And if you choose to throw it away, fine, do so. I recommend you don't. These things can actually be sold to other people. But anyway, the beauty of that particular printer, as opposed to, say, an Epson printer with cartridges with a bag inside, an ink bag, is that when they are declared empty, these are actually empty. Okay? So if you don't care, then yeah, throw away ink every time you toss away an empty cartridge. If you need a printer that uses a roll type adapter, do not get a Pro 1000. If you still want to stick with Canon, you'll have to upgrade to a 2100 or a 2000. That's a predecessor of the 2100. And that you still have to buy a roll adapter, okay? Or buy an Epson P900, for instance, and you can buy the roll adapter for that as well. So that will give you the ability on a 17-inch printer to use a roll, which gives you the beauty of being able to print after print after print, and you then have to trim them manually yourself later. But still, that luxury of not having to use cut sheets. So Pro 1000, no, it does not have that ability. And again, you're limited only to 47 inches maximum length. Overall, the Pro 1000 has a lot of diagnostics that take place before you print, especially again, like I recommend you never do, especially if you have not printed for a week or so. It will run several pre-print diagnostic procedures, and it seems like it's going on forever, and it seems like you're just pulling the last few hairs out of your head because you think it's wasting all of your ink. Well, it is wasting some of your ink, definitely. What it will do is it will first perform an agitation cycle, and the reason for that is because pigment technically can settle because they are solid particles floating in a liquid. So in order to minimize that, what it does inside the compartments, there's 12 of them, they have a little piston sort of mechanism that goes back and forth, and you will hear that. It'll say agitation cycle on your screen. That only happens if you haven't printed for a while. So the agitation cycle will begin. Of course, after that, it will be what? Oh, a preemptive cleaning cycle. And after that, it will be the nozzle check. And I don't mean printing a nozzle check. I mean literally checking each nozzle. You will hear a little click. The printhead is actually moving like this. It's sitting far on the right side. It's doing this little motion. And you hear that click forever. Go upstairs or go out to your living room and, watch something on TV, because it's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to finish. And then after that, it will run another cleaning cycle. And then maybe at that point it will then quiet down and your print that you sent to it will begin to be printed. Chances are it will be perfect. If there was any issues with any nozzle, it's going to stop. It's going to just tell you there's an error. Okay? And you will know. It will not proceed to print. Okay? So again, that's all of these built-in diagnostics is something that other printers may or may not have. I find it helpful. I try not to ever let my Pro 1000 get to the condition where it has to perform all of this before I get a print done. You know what I mean? I want my print right now, not half an hour later. Okay? So again, the secret is printing often. And if you can get away with daily printing, that's even better. Print anything. I don't mean a nozzle check. I mean something that requires the print engine to come in and print and create that dithering of dots. The nozzle check does not do that. The nozzle check simply squirts a little bit of ink out of each nozzle. There's no science behind it. It's just mechanically squirting ink out of each one of those little nozzles, and then you diagnose your results. You got to use your eyeballs for that. So the nozzle check is not to clean or to keep your printer happy. It's to diagnose a problem that you may see when you do print an image. Okay? So if you enjoy having that security before every single print, then get a Pro 1000 or similar type printer, because it will make sure that your results are as good as they can possibly be. One thing that you have to do with these types of printers, and again other similar printers as well, is exchange the waste ink cartridge whenever it needs to be exchanged. And again, the less amount of waste ink you generate, the longer a waste ink cartridge will last you. Fortunately for us, they're not that expensive for the Pro 1000, about $15 each, and I change mine like every 4 to 5, 6 months. It depends on how much I print and how much waste ink I generate. If I generate more waste ink than I am using for producing prints, that's my fault. That is my fault. And of course, all of that ink goes into the waste ink tank. The only thing I have against those things is that you cannot repack them. So you must toss them away. And I just hate the idea of this big clunk of plastic full of waste, gunky black ink inside being disposed. It's not being recycled, folks. It's been thrown inside a landfill. And so I find that very disgusting. I wish it would be something that you can disassemble and then remove the pads, repack with something, and then reset the chip and put it back in. That way you are not throwing away that hunk of plastic. So all in all, the Pro 1000 with good papers, good ICC profiles, custom ones are even better than the ones you get, especially after you internally calibrated your printer, will produce really magnificent results. Something that you can easily sell at a gallery. Is that good of a printer? It will produce amazing results for you. For those of you who are still having problems with color management, this is not an ad. This is a suggestion to you and something that I have been using forever. QImage. People, edit your images, of course, in whatever editor you want to edit in. And if you do not have Photoshop or Lightroom, you can just go ahead and save that image in a non-lossy file format, bring it over to QImage and print the QImage. Uses AI for the color management portion of your print job. Okay, it will actually make sure you do not mess up. And a lot of the issues that I see with prints that are magenta or this kind of color cast or that color is simply due to bad color management mistakes from you. You may have the best monitor in the world, you may have the best calibrated monitor in the world, and yet your prints are coming out magenta. And then you try to adjust that to remove that magenta cast, and it's really you're creating that magenta cast through bad color management. That's why if you use QImage, there's no chance of that happening. Okay, it's just I've tried to fool it. Okay, as bad as say double profiling, it won't let me do it. it forces me to use either the driver controls color, Canon paper on a Canon printer. I choose that Canon paper, and that's it. And I tell the driver to control color. It's going to make sure that it uses the correct mode, ICM, and it will match that paper to its corresponding ICC profile that you have installed in your printer. You get perfect results. Bingo. It's that easy. If you tell QImage to control color, and you're then manually choosing, say, a custom color profile you made to improve your output even a little bit more, it's going to tell the driver, hey, my boy right here told me to control color, so I am telling you, Mr. Driver, to not control color. And it will automatically set it to none. And you will see a notification in front of you that the AI has changed the printer driver settings. And you can't fool it. I have tried. You can't fool it. So, in order to get consistent results, I highly recommend you get QImage. Get the 14-day trial. You're not sure about it? You're saying, hey, Jose, you're trying to sell me something? Well, no, I'm not trying to sell you a single thing. I do not own or work for QImage. I've simply been using it for about maybe 20 years, okay? So, and don't use anything else for printing. And you've seen my results, you've seen my videos, you've seen my live demonstrations on printing and what I'm able to get. Now, one of the quirks about QImage is that the user interface is completely different to anything you've ever used. Okay, so it's very much proprietary. You have to learn it. But again, output always going to be correct. Output settings, in other words. And if you are the owner, unfortunately like me, of like 17 printers, and you can keep track of your settings, every successful job that you create, you can save that. So then you can come back a month later with that printer, that paper, that setup, that layout, and recreate it. Same profile, same settings. If it was correct when you saved it, it will be correct a year from now. Yeah, as long as nothing has changed. So another suggestion, once you use it and you either hate it or love it, okay, if you hate it, then just delete it and you're done. If you love it, they have provided me with a discount link that you can take advantage of when you then buy the full-blown, not 14-day trial version of it. Now, don't be worrying about features. The 14-day trials have all the features that come in the full paid for pay version of it. I think there's just a limitation on how much you can print daily on it. So do that. Use my link. You'll get a 10% discount. And then whenever they have these special discount periods like Black Friday, sometimes at Christmas, sometimes during some of the holidays, you'll get a piggyback discount. So how can you say no to that? Okay. And again, for me, it's just knowing the satisfaction that you're not going to have any issues printing. Okay. And I just today I saw another magenta issue, but at least you have your color management settings automatically set for you, and it's always correctly done. Okay. So thank you again. Pro 1000, yeah, one hell of a printer, but it expects you to use it. Okay. Pro 1000 is like an expensive car. You will have to treat it accordingly. Buy the best gas, you know what I mean. So again, it's not something for you to just let it sit on your table or your bench and ignore it for months on end. That will be the death of your financial future, believe me. So again, the one point that I will leave you with is the Pro 1000. You have to use it. You have to use it. Otherwise, it's just not a financially feasible type printer for the occasional user. It's just not going to work out. All right? Keep that in mind. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And of course, as always, happy printing, everyone. Bye-bye.